Good morning. It's about maybe 10 to 9 probably, and it's a Monday, and I think if I calculate properly, I think this would be day 27, so I got 3 more days. I've been reading Path with Heart. I've been going through this chapter in the past maybe 2 weeks or so, expanding and dissolving the self. Dark night and rebirth. How perfect for what I've been going through in the past few weeks or so. Finally, I actually ended the chapter, and it was a long chapter on the different stages of this dark night. But I'll read you one of the passages. So this is from a Zen teacher, Karlfried von Durkheim, and this is part of the book. The person who, being really on the way, falls upon hard times in the world, will not, as a consequence, turn to that friend who offers him refuge and comfort and encourages their old self to survive. Rather, he will seek out someone who will faithfully and inexorably help him to risk himself so that he may endure the difficulty and pass courageously through it. Only to the extent that a person exposes himself over and over again to annihilation can that which is indestructible be found within them. In this daring lies dignity and spirit to the true awakening. So, Jack Kornfield talks about how this dark night arises. It's a sort of a death and a rebirth. That it's a very, very hard place to be. I've been through this before. I can't say that this time around is as dark as what I've gone through before. And I feel that this dark night happens quite often and in different stages and in different levels. And just recently I posted up, probably just yesterday, I posted up, depending on actually when I post this one up, I posted yesterday on the nightmare and how there was a day that I didn't want to post it up because I was just crying. I was just really heartbroken and feeling very lost and very empty and very fragile, which is exactly what was in this book. I didn't really feel like there was any fearfulness. I didn't feel scared. It was just more that I was feeling very empty. So people experience these feelings in many different ways as pressure, claustrophobia, oppression, tightness, restlessness, or struggle, or as the unbearable endless repetition of experiences one after another, dying all the time. And we feel stuck in this meaningless cycle of life. Obviously, you have to go through this. Everyone has to go through the downs. It's all about letting go. Here's a story that he wrote, and I thought that was really interesting. There's the story of an old Chinese Zen monk who, after many years of peaceful meditation, realized he was not really enlightened. He went to the master and said, "Please, may I go find a hut at the top of the mountain and stay there until I finish this practice?" The master, knowing he was ripe, gave him permission. On the way up the mountain, the monk met an old man walking down, carrying a big bundle. The old man asked, "Where are you going, monk?" The monk answered, "I'm going to the top of the mountain to sit and either get enlightened or die." Since the old man looked wise, very wise, the monk was moved to ask him, "Say, old man, do you know anything of this enlightenment?" The old man, who was really the Bodhisattva Manjusri, said to appear to people when they are ready for enlightenment, let go of his bundle and dropped it to the ground. As in all good Zen stories, in that moment the monk was enlightened. "You mean it is that simple? Just to let go and not grasp anything?" Then the newly enlightened monk looked back at the man and asked, "So now what?" In answer, the older man reached down and picked up the bundle again and walked off towards the town. The story shows both sides of spiritual practice. It teaches us to let go, to relinquish our grasping and identification with all things, and remind us that we just rent this house for a while. Once we have realized that, it teaches us we must re-enter the world with a caring heart. We must pick up our bundle and carry it back into the realm of human life. But now we can travel as a bodhisattva, as one who has traversed the terrain of life and death and is free in a new way. From this freedom, we can bring a heart of understanding and compassion to a world that needs it so much. That was a chapter that took a while for me to read. There were times I just couldn't read it. I found it too difficult. I didn't understand what in the world he was trying to say. He goes so deep. But in the past few weeks, it's really been what I've been going through, and I understand it now. So it's the end of that chapter. It has been a constant reminder of just the idea of just letting go. And if you have fear of that letting go, I mean, that's one thing. I think that feeling of emptiness is the biggest thing. A feeling of void and wanting to fill it up with something. That's why fasting is such an interesting practice as well, because then you've emptied out your stomach and you feel like you're hungry. But are you really, or is just something that you're used to? But of course, fasting is nowhere near the idea of emptying out the soul and the emotions and everything that you so yearn for and that you grasp. Whether it be something that just sounds so ridiculous and something from the past, or something now that you feel that you need to comfort yourself. Once you take that out, what is there left? It's like an addiction, basically. If you've ever had any kind of addiction, actually, any kind, whether it be alcohol, cigarettes, I don't know, drugs, sex, whatever, food addiction. It's that letting go of that and discovering who you are without it. For example, I fell from a pole while pole dancing, and this is 5 years ago, and I wasn't allowed to do anything physical, and that got me so terrified, because who am I if I didn't have my physical fitness, the yoga, the Pilates, the pole dancing, the rock climbing at the time, the gym, and I couldn't do it for about a year. I was so freaked out because that's who I've always seen myself. I've always seen myself as a very physical person. That was my meditation, and to have it taken away from me, as things do, things have to get taken away from me, to realize that, okay, what do I do now? How do I find some sort of peace? So I understand that, and so this time around, it's going through a breakup and going, okay, I can't grasp to this idea that, I need to be with somebody to make me feel whole, or to make me to be the person that I want to be. And even though my life is not exactly the most conventional and the way I'm living, just to be accepting of that and to realize I'm just going to let go and just see what happens. I need to let go. I can't grasp, because there's a yearning, there's a desperation from that grasping. That's really it. But then also realizing, like, what am I desperate for? Realizing that I live in this abundance, and I'm so blessed that I have everything. I don't need to feel like there's anything missing. And so yes, it has been a really hard 7 months. It's been very dark, and it's been very heavy for both parties, really. And I think now that I believe, and maybe I should only speak for myself, I believe that I'm in a better place, that I'm feeling like there is no sense of fear or emptiness, that I'm going on to a next step. But also realizing from that story that I will probably have to pick those things up again and keep on walking on with it, because that's what it is. Probably I'm enlightened for this moment, like right now, maybe. But picking that stuff up and realizing that I will have to carry that same stuff over and over again, and having to make peace with it and having to let go of it over and over again. And that's the learning lesson. And that's what enlightenment is, realizing that you let go and you pick it up and you keep going. That's it. Have a fantastic week.